Well, hey everyone, welcome to the Smiling Homeschooler podcast. We're glad you can join us. As you can see, I have a special guest who I will introduce here in a minute. But before we begin, I just want to say thank you to Teaching Textbooks for helping make the Smiling Homeschooler possible. They're an amazing math curriculum, and we've used them for many, many years and recommended them to so many homeschoolers. And we'd encourage you to check out a free trial over at teachingtextbooks.com. We also want to say thank you to Samaritan Ministries, who you'll hear more about, but they are a community of Christians who pay one another's medical bills, helping families take a safe step of faith as they feel God's leading in career or ministry changes or in bringing mom home. So you can learn more over at samaritanministries.org/familyman, and we appreciate their support. And just to be clear, Dustin, they do support, Samaritans does support us, but he is not contractually obligated to be on the show as far as I'm aware. Maybe they are, and I have not been told, but we really appreciated having him on. I don't know, it was time all goes together, but it was a while ago, and so we're having him back. So Dad actually is not here this week. He is on a rest and relaxation cruise with the youngest three who are still at home. Well, actually, one of them is not the youngest three, but and my mom. My sister got married this last weekend. It went great. Everyone, everything went smoothly. We have a married new brother-in-law. And so they're taking some time to just kind of recharge emotionally and physically, and then hopefully be back next week. So, but Dustin is with Samaritan Ministries. I'm going to let him do an introduction so you can kind of see who he is. So, Dustin, tell us who you are, what's your family like, and what you got going on.
Sure. I mean, before I even talk about myself here, let's talk about the fact that your dad is not here right now. Ben, what are we going to do? Are we going to make him proud, or are we going to make him regret
It may crash and burn, but, I don't know. He's let me do this many other times, so hopefully it'll be okay, but it's easier when there's a guest, that's for sure. So.
Well, has anyone ever said that you guys have a similar laugh?
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah,
yeah. I don't notice it so much until I'm with all of my siblings and my dad, and then I'm like, man, we do all sound exactly the same.
Are you guys all just over there going?
Yeah, pretty much.
Just like
Totally. Do you remember that old internet video? I don't think it's quite this bad, but there was an old early YouTube video of the laughing guy from was that like the Grand Ole Opry or something, where this comedian's doing a thing, gives the mic to this one center guy to do the bit, but then the guy just laughs, and they record it for like 10 minutes straight. And it was one of those early viral moments, but I don't think it's quite that hicky, but maybe it is.
Well, I remember my wife and I were just talking about this. We'll do an intro at some point here, but we just jumped right in. We'll make your dad happy. Just totally derail if we want to.
Hey, that
so
makes the good stuff.
Yeah, we'll keep the spirit of the show going. But yeah, my wife and I were talking about how they used to use like laugh tracks in TV shows. And now if you go back and watch it and listen, you can totally tell that it's just, someone pressing, a button. And it hits differently now that I'm older than when I was younger.
Yeah.
I didn't even notice it there. And now it's very apparent.
Well, it's interesting because I'd be interested to see which ones. Because I know like the I Love Lucy show was live. Like they had an actual audience there, but I don't think some of the other ones like Dick Van Dyke, for example, or, those kind were. I don't think, obviously, Andy Griffith, I think that has a laugh track, right? I think it.
Yeah, I mean, you can tell now. I think it's because we consume so much stuff. You're able to kind of be like, oh, like that's clearly like just the same 4 clips.
Yeah, totally.
Rotated through.
Big Bang Theory is a modern one that has one. I doubt that's live, so I don't know.
Can you imagine being in the audience where they recorded some of those famous laugh tracks?
Yeah.
And having the ability to say like, I was there.
Yeah,
and
totally.
How, like, you know what I mean? Like what that experience was like how many people were there. Anyway, okay, well here, let's go. We'll start on here. My name's Dustin. I've been on the program a few times. I know your dad for quite some time. I do work for Samaritan Ministries, and I do also have a lovely wife and 2 children, a 3-year-old son who's about to be 4 next Monday. That's Monday. Exciting. And then I have a 7-month-old daughter. And my wife and I also are right in that season of life where we're beginning to discuss homeschooling and all that goes into that. So when I talked to your dad, he thought it would be fun to periodically kind of check in and see where what's going on with me as a new homeschooling dad, where my fears are lying, where my successes are, where the questions that I have
Yeah.
and all that sort of stuff. And I'm kind of just be a bit transparent with some of that, and that's why I guess I'm here today.
That's awesome. And so
Yeah.
that helps me remember when you were on here, because before it was right after. I mean, like
It was
within days or week of having your
you
baby
got
in your bathroom. I'm
yes.
pretty sure
Yes, you're
on the
exactly
floor,
right.
just about.
You're
So
exactly
yeah,
yeah, no, you guys had scheduled me to be on the program, and it just happened to work out. It was the first thing I did after my wife and I, had our daughter. And yes, we were planning a home birth with our daughter, but it ended up being me
a
delivering her in the
full home
bathroom.
birth.
Yeah,
As
full home
home
birth
birth as it
experience.
gets.
Yeah. So that was like I was fresh off that, still like adrenaline,
Yeah,
pumping. And you guys, I think, were the first like podcast that I did that I got to kind of really share the
yeah,
story about
it
it.
was
And
special.
I'm really great. Yeah, I'm grateful for that because I wrote it down too, but it was one of the absolute, thrills of my entire life. And so it was kind of really though neat to get to capture it like this as well. And maybe one day she'll want to listen to
Yeah,
it.
exactly.
Probably not though. Like,
Relive the
Dad,
trauma of it.
Dad, stop showing my friends
Yeah,
the birth
totally.
story.
It's weird though. So we have my dad and my brothers, and I've talked about it. We've talked about it before on the podcast, but we have another podcast called The Wonderful World of Disney Plus, where we talk about Disney movies, and we're all just
Okay.
big Disney movie fans and stuff. But my
Uh-huh.
kids re-listen to the same episodes over and over and over, and I'm like, why would you want to listen to us just talk about the same thing? But they're like, yeah, we just love it. So maybe your
Okay.
child will be really into it in some weird way. But
Okay.
um,
Okay.
so why'd you decide to homeschool? I mean, I don't think you
Yeah.
guys had a background in homeschooling. Maybe
No,
I don't. Yeah. So have you pretty confirmed committed to it? Obviously, you don't
definitely.
have to. But what's kind of your approach, and what kind of started it all?
Yeah, no, you're right. I didn't grow up homeschooled. I grew up in kind of suburbs of Chicago in Northwest Indiana in public school. And at that point in time, I was not walking with Jesus. I was on the other end chasing my own desires and pleasures. And I never made it to high school.
Hmm.
So I got kicked out of eighth grade, and then like 2 weeks into my high school, they expelled me. And so my public school experience was elementary school and middle school and an extra middle school year. And so I didn't, I'll just say I didn't have the greatest public school,
Yeah.
experience. And then my wife was a missionary kid in the
Hmm.
Philippines. And so for a large time, they were kind of bouncing around. They had kind of a mixture of like boarding school and then some homeschool. And then they came back to the States and actually went to public school for high school. So she had a mixture
Yeah.
of all sorts of stuff. And so that's kind of our background. Now, when I was, some of you, I probably maybe remember this a little bit, but when I was around 23, I ended up at the homeless shelter in Central Illinois in Peoria, and where I went through a long-term discipleship program for men. Because at that point, I was doing drugs for about 10 years of my life, and serious drugs, and the Lord just really showed me my great need for Him. Ended up at the rescue mission, and there is the first time in my life I actually picked up a book.
Wow.
Like
Yeah.
for first time I read a book, I was like
Yeah.
23 years old, and I actually remember making it through. And they gave me like a plaque at the rescue mission
Nice.
because it took me a while to get through it. But I remember at that time is when the idea of Bible college came out for me, and I was like, Bible college? Like, wait a second. I never graduated. I never went to high school. I'm homeless. I don't have any money, and I have been out of school for like 10 years, and so I didn't
Yeah.
have very fond memories of school. And so ended up going to Bible college, and my whole attitude towards learning had shifted. I wanted to know more about God. I wanted to know more about the scriptures. I wanted to learn about, music and ministering, and it turns out that when you actually want to learn,
Yep.
it
Makes a
makes a
big difference.
huge difference.
No kidding.
And so I spent 7 years in Bible college, and really enjoyed it, and it changed kind of some of my attitude about that. And then when my wife and I first started having kids, I think it was very clear to us that we were going to homeschool. Um, yeah, because my wife, God bless her, she's a wonderful, hardworking, homemaking, stay-at-home
Yeah.
mom. And that is the hardest job, in my opinion. Like that's right up
Yeah.
there, hardest job in the world. You know what I
100%.
mean? And if you don't think so, just like stay at home a few days with
Yep.
the kids.
I
Yeah, please, please.
My wife
You
was under
know,
the weather the last 2 days, and I skipped a day of work, and you're just like, man,
like
this
this is
is
harder
yeah,
than you
tries
think.
the
Yeah.
patience.
And
Yeah.
so anyway, so I'm very thankful and blessed. And my wife and I, when we first got married, we always kind of knew that would be, a one income family. Like
Right.
that was a conviction
Yeah.
that we had, and it was important to me and important to us that we made a decision from the get-go in our marriage that if that for us at least
Yeah.
it was highly important for us to have her in the homemaking role, and that was what I desired for her, and that's what she desired too. So
Yeah.
that was one of the things I think that knit us together pretty quickly when we met each other. I remember asking her, I said like when we first started dating, I said like, what do you want to do in like 5 years or something? And I still remember I can see the spot we were sitting in the car, and she said, honestly, I really just want to be like a good wife and a good mother. And I was like, oh, you're in trouble. I was like, if you're not wanting to be stuck with me, that's the wrong thing to
Yeah,
say.
that's right. Yeah.
Because that was my desire too. Like I
Yeah.
was like, I want to be a good husband. I want to be a good father. Like that
Yeah.
was that was my whole thing. So to find somebody who was like aligned in that, then my wife and I got married, 9 months later after that, and we've been married for 15 years. And so when we started talking about, other little humans in the house, it was initially, I think, how do I want to say? It was initially very intimidating,
Hmm.
the idea of homeschooling.
It is for a lot
Um,
of people. I mean, that is not an uncommon thing. I don't think.
yeah, I mean, I think that to some degree, when we looked at, um, you know, what were some of the things that were, how do I want to say, being taught? Like when I was in school, the whole thing was it was really the whole thing was how to memorize, how to
Hmm. Yeah.
regurgitate
100%.
information. So I realized very quickly early on that they just want me to regurgitate information. And so I would just be like, hey, tell me what information you want. I
Totally.
knew that if there's a test coming up one day, I could put it into a spot in my brain that I could regurgitate it the next day and then it would be gone.
Yeah.
So
And I
it
mean, that's
was,
something you hear all the time as like a badge of honor. Like, oh, I can remember, the night before I can memorize that stuff and it leaves my head. But I've had so many people say this exact same thing. It's crazy.
well, yeah. And I mean, I think that, I mean, that was a bit of a skill, like as
Yeah,
far as
for sure.
memorizing stuff. I think it's a worthwhile endeavor.
Yeah. It's
But
not
it
all
was
bad.
not worth it. It was not worth 8 hours a day,
Right.
5 days a
But
week.
it's not learning necessarily. It is a skill, but it's
No,
not learning the material or,
that's right.
bettering yourself or, you're,
That's
developing that love long term.
that's that's totally right. Yeah, and I think that I realized that I think that what my wife and I right now, I mean, our son's just about to
Right.
turn 4, and we have started doing some things. But what we really prayed, and I remember really praying this for before he was even born, that he would just love learning. That he would
Hmm.
just love to learn. And what's funny is that he's actually helped me in some areas um, to love learning. So, for
That's
example,
awesome.
one thing that my son currently says is if somebody doesn't know how to do something, he'll go, "Oh, Dad, they're still learning."
That's awesome.
And we've kind of caught on to that in the house, in that it takes a bit of humility to say, "Oh, son," like I'll say back to him sometimes, "Son, Dad's still learning."
Hmm.
Um, and I didn't think, I didn't think that, he would be helping me in some areas
Yeah.
to love that just the process of
Yeah.
learning. And I think there's a lot of pressure. I mean, I felt the pressure as a dad to have it all together. I need to
Hmm.
know how to fix the furnace. I need to know how to change the oil. I need to know how to, you know, um, you know, shingle a roof. I need to
Right.
know how to work an Excel spreadsheet. I need to know, have all the answers for life and all the math questions, all the
Yeah.
problems, all of this. So I need to know it all in order for me to be able to teach. And I think that I'm just leaning into that right now. I'm teaching my son something really valuable when I say, yeah, dad's still learning too,
Totally. I
you
think
know.
that's a underappreciated aspect of homeschooling, and I think that a lot of people do come in fearful, and we just had, and it's cool when people know you're homeschooled, they remember it. My wife worked with someone. I mean, like I would guess like 10 plus years ago, maybe longer. And the lady reached out on Facebook and just said, "Hey, my kid's having a horrible time in school. School I just put them in is like their first week or whatever. I'm thinking about pulling them out to start, homeschooling, but I'm just so terrified." But, we hear that a lot. And a lot of them, it's the idea of like, I just don't know it enough. I'm not going to be able to teach them because I just
Mm.
don't know everything. And that's the I think one of the least understood things is you don't have to know everything to homeschool.
Mm.
I mean, no one knows everything, as obviously Dustin was just saying. Like, you're all going to be learning together, and that's something super cool. And a lot of it, obviously, you know how to read, you know how to do basic math. Like, you're going to be refreshers, but
Yeah.
that is something that's such a fun thing, is to be able to learn together as a family of, maybe it is some, history, because a lot of people never enjoyed history. A lot of people never enjoyed some of those, geography or science, but you can do so much with homeschooling to tailor it to your kids' interests and stuff. And you're going to be learning alongside them.
Oh,
And that's so fun. I
oh,
mean, I remember things like that with my
yeah.
mom, and it's such a fun experience. So,
Well, I remember being at school. One of the things that was really hard for me specifically was they would like, the structure that was in middle school when I was there
mm-hmm.
is they would have, like, you go there early, and then they have a class for like an hour, and then they pull you out and put you in another class for an hour, and then put you in another, and they were just like shifting you around to
Yeah.
different people and like different subjects. And that was like the worst possible scenario in regards to someone who is
Yeah.
easily distracted. I mean, I was just starting to get into this, and
Yeah.
now you're ripping
You're just
me,
pulling it away. Yeah, for
pulling me into
sure.
there. And so I just, really early on, was like, all right, I'm out. I can't follow along with this. But I remember being in Bible college, and that was the first time I had encountered like homeschoolers.
Mm.
I knew that they were
Yeah.
were a species that existed in the outer
Yeah.
edges of the earth somewhere. But this was my first time actually meeting real life homeschooled adults. And I think I kind of was like, I'm trying to remember what I thought they were going to be like. But after like a few semesters in college, it became very aware to me that the kids who were homeschooled had, I'm just gonna say it. I'm just gonna say it. Had a better education. Had a far better education. They and I remember being like, oh, like, well, and then I started diving into it a little bit
Yeah.
more. And then for my job at the school, I would travel for the school to college fairs and homeschool conferences and conventions. I have been to more homeschool conferences and conventions. The only person that's been to more is your dad.
I mean, I would
And
venture to say I'd probably be close, but yes, he has been to a ton. So,
yeah, so me and you share probably
yeah,
that similar, and stand behind a
yeah,
booth
yep,
and go. I get to see all the things, and in the between, while people are not in the exhibit hall, I go and gather
yeah,
information, and I can get all the stuff that I want to, and read it right there because there's a lot of time when you're sitting behind there. I have been to hundreds of those, which is where me and your dad met,
yeah.
and I feel like throughout my time in Bible college, when I was actually surrounded by people who were homeschooled and they weren't the aliens that I maybe had just been told that they would
Yeah,
be. In fact, they seemed like the smarter group. Like if I was going to survive on an island, I probably, if I was going to survive on an island
they probably
and I
did a
could only,
unit study on that, or something, so
and I almost guarantee, if like, you take 10 people, take 10 people with you, Dustin. I would imagine the people I would have plucked out of that group in Bible college, if you would have looked back, all those people would have came
wow,
out of a homeschooling
yeah.
background.
I do think there
Um,
is like, I don't know, and obviously you can have this on the other side, but something that I have seen a lot of is and I notice it is that like spark, like when you're talking to them of like interest in whatever it is, or just the ability to like kind of comprehend something. And I do think that homeschooling does, because I think it's more just the love of learning more than anything, is just like
yes.
being willing to actually like think about something and not just
hmm
like, hey, if it's not interested to me, or if I'm not already in it, I'm just going to tune it out or whatever. And I
hmm
do see that, like whether it's from a workplace, working with people who have been homeschooled in the past or whatever it is, there's just like a little bit of a spark. It's not always there. It's not in both ways. There's been other people I've seen it, but I do see it more
hmm
often, I feel like.
Yeah, and I feel like, there's a lot of people that say, oh, like, if you're homeschooled, the people are weird. And, obviously there's probably be that
Yeah.
there's some areas, but those people also, I'm like, have you ever been to a high school?
I know, right? Have you not? Even if you've not been, even if you're me, every movie
Um,
ever created has weird kids in it for normal school. I'm like, there's a reason they do that.
Yeah, it's kind of like choose your weird. I
Yeah,
mean, it's like
exactly.
there's nobody that escapes it completely,
And in
but
this
yeah,
day and
no.
age, I personally, I've had this conversation with coworkers who, kind of had that they always kind of talk about it from that standpoint of like, oh, the
Mhm.
weird kids. And I'm like, honestly, guys, in this world, I don't mind if my kids don't be the
I'm
fit in. I want them to be a little bit weird at this point. Like,
totally,
it's okay
totally,
if they don't look
totally,
exactly like all the public schoolers, and I'll
totally.
take that.
Yeah, and I don't have a problem with I don't even have a problem with the word shelter. I will
hmm
shelter my
Yeah,
kids right underneath my wings as
yeah,
we are underneath his wings. And now again, I was the opposite of sheltered
yeah.
growing up. I mean, I grew up in the 1900s, Ben. When did you grow up?
I
When
was
did you
saying,
grow
I
up,
mean,
Ben?
I was born 1993, so a
Oh,
little bit.
okay, okay. So
Yeah, yeah,
you remember a little bit there,
yeah,
but yeah, I don't ever remember being in the house.
yeah.
Like it
I mean,
was
during the
just like,
winter we did some, but
yeah, yeah. Yeah, they let me sleep
frostbite
inside in the
kicks
winter.
in after about 8 hours of Indiana, but
Yeah, but I mean, it was like, there was a lot different time, but and even school, but I think that what I remember being taught growing up was you just need to do this and you just need to endure it and get through it. And at the end, it's going to be good for you because you endured something you didn't want to do and you didn't quit. That was kind of like what was being sold as what what
hmm
school
yeah,
18 years had to, I need you to endure this for 18 years, son, or whatever. But I really do think that like this idea of like instilling the love of learning, like with our son right now, my wife. So remember me telling you how I hadn't read a book until I was in
right,
my 20s. My wife was the opposite. She loved the book from an early age, and God bless her because she really drove this home with us and our son at a very early age. We would just read him a book
yeah,
after right before every nap, and so much so that he really began looking forward to it, and it even started pushing me because I'm not naturally just a book reader.
yeah,
Like it's harder for
yep,
me since I didn't, and I wanted to give my son that gift, and so now it's helping me rediscover the joy of the book and the written page, and he loves books. if you brought my son into a room and there's a pile of toys and a pile of books, he likely is going to go run to the
Mm-hmm.
books. And I'm so thankful for that. And it's just, again, it's a testament to just my wife being, intentional about putting that before him and making it an enjoyable
Yeah,
thing. So now the book is tied to just quality time with mom and dad. And I'm so thankful for that. And
totally.
so that
That,
would never happen to me growing up.
that's something that, yeah, totally. I mean, that's a huge portion of the population nowadays, just doesn't really read a lot, and I think a lot of that does come from the fact that a lot of people don't view books as enjoyment at all, or of anything of really of value other than just like either one, information, that's the point, or two, just worthless. But I mean, I think doing that with your kids, and my mom read aloud to us a lot as in school. It instills in you that books are a fun thing, are something that provide. It just can give you so much, and you don't really see them as like, it's something I have to read 16 pages before tomorrow or whatever. It's just something that you enjoyed going to, and it's something just like watching a movie or playing with a toy.
Yeah.
That's just a fun thing to do, and I think that's really cool.
Well, that's, I think, going to set us up well because right now it's pretty much we've started to do a little bit of what we call learning time
Mm-hmm.
at our house. He loves learning time. He wants to do learning
That's
time.
awesome.
And really, a big thrust behind that is teaching him the alphabet, teaching him the sounds, because we know for sure that little guy cannot wait to read.
Yeah.
He is putting it together, and we could see it in real time, him doing this. And so for right now, kind of one of the big things is we're teaching him his letters and teaching
Yeah.
him how to put those together. And it's gonna be once he really is able to read, I think for our
Yeah.
son at least, it's gonna open up all sorts of doors for
Totally.
him. So that's one thing right now that I guess what we're doing it. But then in
Yeah.
regards to like curriculums and all that sort of stuff, my wife and I are still kind of talking about that and how we want to approach
I
some of
think
that.
that is awesome. I mean, because we were kind of talking about like, do you think you guys would be laid back, all that kind of stuff. But at the same time,
Mm,
you've got an almost 4-year old. Something we always advocate is not rushing straight into full
mhm,
on. We're doing all of it,
mhm,
right from the
mhm.
earliest
Yeah, yeah,
age.
yeah,
Let's
yeah,
start with science today, that kind of stuff.
yeah.
So, and actually last week we had an amazing episode with Ashley Wiggers from Homeschooling Today magazine, and she has really great topics. She kind of was talking about preschool and kindergarten, her approaches to it. But I think one thing you really mentioned was that I think is good thing to key in on was the reading and his interest in it, because I think that's a big indicator. Like, so if he's wanting, like you can see that, it's like, sure,
Right,
feed
yeah.
the fires, but if there was like a lot
Mm-hmm.
of resistance, I think that's where that age does change quite a bit depending on the
Mm-hmm.
kid, I mean,
Totally.
and I think especially when they're that young, like being able to judge that and feel the freedom to kind of just make that decision of, is this feeling natural? Does it feel like I'm forcing
Mm-hmm.
it? Does it, are
Mm-hmm.
they enjoying this? Because especially at that little,
Mm-hmm.
you don't want to start fighting it from the age of 3,
Yeah.
of like,
That,
we got to
yeah.
do learning time, and the kid's just
Yeah.
frustrated and you're frustrated, and like the big kid can, hardly say a word,
Yeah.
a full sentence,
Yeah.
whatever, not literally,
Uh-huh.
but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So
Uh-huh.
I
Yeah,
think
totally.
that's so critical during those especially those early few years, because
Yeah.
it's not going to make or break their entire existence if you're doing 30 minutes of this versus 2 hours. It's going to be
Mm-hmm.
okay.
Well, time will tell what happens with our daughter, but our son so far, I mean, praise God, he
That's awesome. That's
definitely
super fun.
wants, yeah, so that's a real gift. And my wife and I think that I would have a very laid back style in all
Hmm.
this. Like I would bring probably the most laid back approach.
Nice.
And your dad
Yeah.
maybe would beat me,
Yeah.
Todd. If
Yeah.
you're out there, you might have me, but I would be a close second. And then my wife, if she just went full on, she would probably be quite more
Yeah.
structured.
Yeah.
And so I think that my wife and I, over these 15 years, have learned how to lean into each other's strengths and to know where we would want to take stuff,
Yeah.
like, and maybe go a little too far,
Yeah.
not because
One
we
way or the other.
actually care about the other person, but because we want what we want, you know?
Yeah.
So if I just want total peace and no, you know, like, and that is high priority for me, and my wife wants like complete order. And so we got to figure, we kind of balance each other out a bit in that, you know, where my wife would want to have everything really structured and stuff that has to kind of, you know, lay out some blueprints and be flexible, and where I would just want to just like completely, you know, chase butterflies all day. Um, have to kind of, you know, come over a little bit. And so we're learning and working through some of that, like what works for our family. But I'm confident that my wife, with the Spirit of God dwelling in her, myself with that God has equipped us to be able to love and cherish and enjoy and teach our kids um, really, you know, the important things of life. And we're gonna learn, like you said, along the
Yeah.
way. And but I will say that um, you know, there's some things that are a bit
Yeah,
scary about
for
it, you
sure.
know. But
Well,
I've seen a lot of other people that I really love and respect, and I've seen some adult children who have still have a great relationship with their
yeah.
parents after being homeschooled. And I see a lot of really successful people that have done it, and I've seen a lot of different styles, and there's probably, as time goes on, my wife and I will pull from here, there,
Oh
and
yeah.
everywhere, and we'll do the best with the what we have and the kids that God has given us,
Yeah.
and that we might be, you know, look at them as image bearers and discipling them, and also helping them, give as many tools as we can that they can navigate this world and hopefully have just
Yeah.
real abundant life.
Well, and I mean, at the end of the day, you know, we are called as their parents. We're the parents. You know, we're responsible for that. You know, it isn't some other person. You know, God doesn't call the teachers union or whatever to be responsible for raising up our children to follow Him. I mean, that is not their responsibility. So, regardless if you know if your kids are in school or not saying you're shirking that, but in the end, we are the responsible ones that have been called to raise and lead our children and disciple them and steward the children that God has given us. So I think
Yeah,
that
I mean,
is an amazing thing.
and I'm a grown man, and my wife's still teaching me things
Yeah,
after 15
totally.
years. I'm still learning. I'm still
You
learning.
will till
Just
the day
hanging
you
out with her.
die.
You know, that's what I mean. So like, I'm confident our little 4-year-old
Yep.
son is going to pull some good things
Oh
from
yeah.
my wonderful wife, and so yeah. I mean, there. I think the last thing I'll say is that one of the things is, you know, obviously with my wife being home, you know, there's a lot of that falls on, you know, her shoulders. But I think like I would imagine our style is more of just seeing the love of learning and teaching being just as we walk through life. Now, obviously, there's times where we sit down and, you know, kind of
Yeah.
zero in on this, that, or the other. But I don't ever want it to just be like, well, that was learning time, and now this is not.
Right.
I really want it to be more of we're, you know, that I'm teaching them more than just, you know, like here during this time, but I'm teaching them how to love and how to forgive and how to ask for forgiveness and how to be
100%.
humble and how to, you know, use, like, because right now we have more access to knowledge
Yep.
than any other generation before us.
Yeah.
So it's not a lack of access to
Access. Yep.
knowledge. It's all about how to apply that with wisdom. And so that's kind of, for me, I think, and my wife, you know, we can get the knowledge anywhere. It's
100%.
everywhere. You can get it, it's coming out of our nose. But how do we actually take that and apply it to where we are using that to love and serve others and serve God,
Yeah.
and to you know, enjoy the life that God has given us, and then zero in on what He's calling us to do, the gifts He's given us, the way He's wired us. It's kind of fun for my wife and I as we're discovering these little humans and going, all right, we're kind of we're learning who they are,
Yeah.
like learning, well, okay, what's making him tick. Like the other day, my wife and I looked at our son, and he was bumbling around the house, just falling. And we looked at each other, and my wife's like, "Yeah, I don't think he's gonna be a sports one." And I was like, "Yeah, I mean, the signs are not showing that, but and that's
Yeah,
just
totally.
it's kind of fun to discover that."
Everyone's built so differently. It is wild. Well, we had some other topics we want to talk about.
Yeah,
We will definitely be checking in with you,
please
throughout
do.
the years. We really love having you on here. But before we leave, I'm going to say thank you to Teaching Textbooks for making the Smiling Homeschooler possible. My daughter is just about to start up with them, which is awesome. They start at third grade. It's so interactive. It's engaging. It's really as independent as you want it to be. I mean, they can do it right from any device that has an internet browser. And they're just an amazing company and an amazing supporter of what we do and just the homeschool community. So go check out a free trial over at teachingtextbooks.com. Also, since we have Dustin here, I wanted you to go ahead, Dustin, and kind of explain. You have a new Redeem Health Share, which is part of a new kind of a program. Maybe explain a little bit about Samaritans and that aspect of it, and then we'll let you go.
Yeah, so Samaritan recently launched an additional sharing option called Redeem Health Share. And so it's under still same Samaritan umbrella, and it's a fully digital option. And it's gonna really hammer in on a few key pieces. There's an option for seniors that's there. There's a new program that exists for groups that's there. There's a additional add-on feature that allows for things like dental and vision and some preventative care to be shared. And so there's some kind of just neat new stuff that's happening with these programs inside of Redeem. And so actually I'm in Dallas right now currently because of that. And yeah, I think that there's a lot of neat stuff that's happening here at Samaritan. And so if you've looked at it before and maybe it wasn't a good fit for some reason or another in regards to features and things like that, take a look at Redeem. I think that the Lord is further opening up options for Christians to have their medical needs met.
Nice. And we appreciate all their support of the Smiling Homeschooler. They've been an awesome partner. So, and again, our families have used them for years and really, really recommend them. So go check them out over at, actually I just lost it, SamaritanMinistries.org/familyman.
Amen.
So, all right, Dustin, well, I'm going to let you go. I've got actually second half of the podcast. Yep. We'll see you next time.
All right. Hey, make sure, make sure that, your dad listens to this and to know that we totally didn't burn this to the ground. So Todd, if we love you and we miss you.
The only problem is I'm not positive he would know how to listen to a podcast. I think he probably would, but I'm not 100%.
He doesn't know how to listen
I'll make sure he does though.
Should we drop some sort of Easter egg in here?
That's right.
To see if he actually does listen?
Dustin will buy you. No, I'm just kidding.
And to actually ask what I bought him lunch one time.
Okay.
And let's see if he can remember what it is.
If he brings it up next time I see him,
if he brings it up,
then we'll know he actually listened to it this far. So
okay, sounds good. All right, thank you, Ben.
You have a great evening.
You.
Thank you for joining us.
You too, brother. Okay, bye.
All right. So for the second half of this podcast here, I want to have my sister, Kat. So we'll get her here. Hey, Kat, you there?
Hey, yep. I can
All right.
barely hear you.
You can barely hear me?
No, I got it.
Okay. All right, so this is going into the second half of the podcast. I'm joined by my sister, Katherine, or Kat, as she often goes by. She is, let's see, we are the third oldest in the family. You've been on it before. She is an author, a mom, and a homeschool graduate. But Kat, you have something exciting you're going to be doing here soon. We posted about it today on the Smiling Homeschooler Facebook page, so if you're listening, you can check it out there. But maybe explain a little bit about what you've got going on, and we'll talk about it.
Yeah, so I'm excited to be kind of launching an online story writing class for grades 6 through 12. Yeah, I'm really just excited to be able to share what I learned through writing The Maidens of Maladone, which was like a medieval adventure series I wrote when I was a teenager. So what I learned through that process, what I've learned since then. And yeah, just excited to be able to share that with students. I think there's options out there like in book format or a workbook you could use or something like that, but there's not a lot of like one-on-one interactions to really learn what it looks like to write a story. We're going to cover everything from like what makes a good story, talking about plot development and storylines and character developments, and how to actually write a story, like what are the practical aspects of starting to the end. Oftentimes we get lost in the middle somewhere and ends up kind of fizzling out. So my goal is just to kind of help enable and equip young writers to actually be able to say I wrote that and feel like empowered and like they have the tools to be able to write the stories that they have in their heads.
Which is super awesome. And I mean, I guess what's your vision, for the mom? What's the profile of the kid who would be a good fit for this? Is it, a certain age? Is it, interest? And then I guess kind of, what would that look like?
Yeah. So I think it's not a basic beginner writing course. Mm-hmm. So I think ideally your student would have some idea of the basics. This is more for the kid who loves to write and wants to write stories, but doesn't know where to start or doesn't know how to finish. And so, yeah, I think ideally a student would have a love for stories, whether that's, maybe they love to read, maybe they love movies, and like more of the story aspect to it. Mm-hmm. Maybe they've already tried their hand at writing and they're frustrated or they're discouraged or feeling like they can't finish anything. And that's how I was as a kid. But yeah, I think honestly, I would love to see students who just are excited about writing and excited about stories and have a good imagination. I think you can go really far with an imagination, even if, everyone's going to be at different skill levels. And, this class is going to be from kind of spanning multiple grades. So we're going to have kids with different hard skills. So those will continue to develop, but the point of this class is to give them tools that they can apply as they continue to learn the hard skills of grammar and sentence structure and all of that. That will come. This is more how to craft a story.
Right. And I mean, when did you feel like for you, thought, or I guess mom realized you had the love of writing? Because I mean, and just, to be clear, not every kid in our family obviously loves writing. I mean, I can do it and to some extent, but I think I lack on the imagination side of things. Sam probably couldn't write as well, but has the imagination. But then Kat is a good, combination of that. So when did you first feel like you really started to see that? And I guess, this is more so that moms out there might recognize some of those signs if they have younger kids.
Yeah, I think I want to say I have a vivid memory of like starting to write a chapter book in like a spiral bound journal or something like that when I was probably like 8.
Wow.
But that was pretty rudimentary and probably couldn't read.
I'm just kidding.
Probably couldn't read any of it because the spelling was so terrible.
Yeah.
But
mine would have been that bad at like 15 probably. So
yeah, I just love to read, honestly. I just really love stories. And I think around probably 12 or 14, I felt like I'd kind of run out of like good content to read. And that's when I really got interested in writing my own. I think I was, around 14, maybe 16 when we published the first one. So yeah, but I think that can come at different ages. I remember Ike being inspired to write a book after he read a book that he just really loved. And so I think the beauty of homeschooling is that you can tap into those, sudden interests, or maybe it's been more kind of simmering for a while. But yeah, I love that we have the option to introduce something that may really kind of ignite a passion or fan a passion for a kid who's showing some interest.
Nice. And I will say, actually, I think Dad might be one of the only authors full time that I would not
Can't
say is a
spell worth
huge
a hoot.
book fan. Like he does
Yeah.
read certain books a lot. Like he loves the Lord of the
Yeah.
Rings and certain other books, but he does not, like, I would not say he's a big bookie, but almost every author
Yeah.
I've ever seen or followed online is. But what, and then we'll let you go here shortly, but what would you say time commitment is going to look like for these kids?
So it's a weekly class for 8 weeks. We're going to take a break in the middle, but it'll be for eight classes. It'll be about an hour, might go over a little bit, an hour to an hour and a half, but probably near an hour. It's going to be Tuesday afternoons, 2:30. We'll start on September 2nd, so we're getting pretty close to the deadline here. But yeah, just meant to be an 8-week, I don't want to say intensive because it's not going to be an intense workload or burden on your kids at all, but we're just really going to focus on stories for those 8 weeks. And the class is going to be really interactive, so it's not like lecture format. I want it to be kind of like a guided conversation as we kind of talk about favorite books, favorite movies, and what makes those good, and then kind of go more in depth from there.
Nice. Okay. Well, I think I would really encourage anyone, if you do have, a child that is interested, definitely you can sign up. Like she said, it starts pretty soon, and you can do that over at the smilinghomeschooler.com/writing-class. And again, that's smilinghomeschooler.com/writing-class. And if you have any questions, you can message us on Facebook too, and I can relay those over to Kat. And she is an awesome teacher, and I think I think your kids would really enjoy it. And if you want, you can check out her books too over on our website. She has a series written mostly, I think, probably girl centered, but I'm sure boys like them as well.
Guys can read them too.
Yep, guys can read them too. But you can check those out over on the website too. But I think that's really awesome. So thanks for joining us, Kat. But before we wrap up, I just want to say thank you to Teaching Textbooks for making the Smiling Homeschooler possible. As always, they're an amazing math curriculum and just an amazing company. So if you ever have any questions or you haven't checked them out, you can do so over at teachingtextbooks.com. Also, thank you to Samaritan Ministries, a community of Christians that pay one another's medical bills, helping families take a safe step of faith as they feel God's leading in career or ministry changes or in bringing mom home. And you can learn more over at samaritanministries.org/familyman. But all right, we'll be back next week. Dad will be back. Again, we just hope you are, if you haven't started homeschooling yet this year, that's okay. Take your time, start when it feels right. My wife was planning on starting this week, but then she was feeling under the weather and not great. So she's taking another week off, and that's totally okay. So do what works for your family, and we think that'll make you smile. Have a great week, and we'll see you next week.